Hello, and today we're going to be talking about high market rents on provincial disability. Wow. People who receive the provincial disability in Canada, they're going to be paying high market rents, or they are, or they will, or they are, or it's up and away, and we're going to be talking about it next. Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to PWD Allies podcast. My name is Brent Frain. I'm the host. Today, we're going to be talking about high market rents on provincial disability assistance in Canada. Up and away, how high can the rents go? Well, today we're going to be discussing that with my guest, Eve Daigle, joining me. Hi, Eve. Nice to meet you.
We're on, Eve.
There we go.
Oh, okay.
How you doing, Eve?
I'm not very good with technology, to be honest. Hi, how's it going? It's nice to meet you. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm sorry for being late. Oh my
That's
goodness.
okay.
That's okay.
That's
Yeah.
okay. Things happen. Yeah, it's nice to meet you too. During my intro, I was discussing that we're going to talk about high market rents on provincial disability assistance in Canada. How high can the rents go? Provincial disability assistance do not cover the high market rents at all, not even a full check.
Yeah,
So,
and that's why we had you on actually, because we do want to make the distinction between there's 26% of PWD out there that do get rent subsidies and or do get a rent guaranteed income, right? So there's 26% that do get that, but you, Brent, and you, Eve, are two examples of people on provincial assistance that don't get it. So you're both paying the high market rents. So that's why we're inviting you on today.
mhm, exactly. Yeah, there's a small portion of the population gets RGI. It's basically lots more that has to be changed in order to even out the playing field on that, and that'll be something that we can dive in today and talk about too. Even if you would like talk about RGI versus market rent.
Yep. Yeah, that'd be great. I definitely have a lot of insight into the challenges and barriers in accessing affordable housing and yeah.
Long waiting lists for sure.
Yeah.
Very long list. We're not talking just a couple months here. We're talking like many
Years.
years.
Yeah.
Are just for curiosity, are you signed up on the registry? Did you sign up for?
Yeah.
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 And how long have you been waiting for it?
It's been about 2.5 years now. So I
Yeah.
actually am new to disability, but when I got on, okay, so my story is kind of interesting. So I was
Mhm.
actually in a homeless shelter when my disability was accepted, and I went and contacted BC Housing about getting RGI, getting into RGI housing, and they said that it would be a 5 to 8 year wait. So, when I was in the shelter, at that point, I said, okay, I can't rely on this system. I didn't even know what my health issues were at the time. So I was forced to just go into market housing because I had no other options. So, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, especially with the shelter rate only at $500. It got increased 2 years ago from 375 to $500, and that's the point I want to make to our listeners, our viewers. It increased after 16 years from 2007. It finally went up in 2023 to $500, and you can't rent anywhere in market housing for 500, let alone a whole check for 1483.50.
Mhm.
Yeah, and hasn't changed for 2 years, and not even tied to the cost of living. Then they wonder why people are homeless, because the
Exactly.
system is set up that way to compress it down. Like the stats are showing, like the waiting list for subsidized housing, it's like we talked about a few minutes ago. It's years. In some cases, some people are saying up to 20 years.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that it's not. For the amount of people that are on the waiting list, it comes down to, like, I guess, families first. Child, basically parents who have children. I mean, they're going to take priority over individuals, and I guess it depends on the circumstance too, of medical conditions too. They'll take that into consideration. I mean, I know that there's a lot that is getting built, but it's just not enough that's getting built throughout the province and throughout Canada. It's badly needed RGI housing for sure. I mean, one of the solutions or ideas that I have, Eve, is to extend that subsidized housing into market housing, so that people that are in market housing now can actually have the same criteria that individuals on PWD income assistance that are in the province, whatever province they're in, can actually access that same program in market housing.
That it's the safer program that they have for the elderly, right? Are you familiar with that, Eve?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a Safers program that's for seniors. They also have a program that's a rental assistance program.
What's the acronym, Brent? Do you know? It's senior affordable something.
Affordable.
Fair, maybe.
Yeah, I always get that messed up.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's basically an additional subsidy for the elderly to help cover the cost of the extra expense for rents.
Yeah, single mothers, single fathers get the also same subsidy. It's called RAP, Rental Assistance Program in BC.
Well, they're supposed to, Brent, but
Yeah, they're supposed to, but
like I said before, I mean, I was a single dad for 5 years, and I didn't get RAP. I got a clawback, so yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard there's a lot of barriers, especially for like
Yeah.
single parents when it comes to accessing these types of resources.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's I always say get big scissors out and cut all that red tape and get rid of all the barriers, because there doesn't need to be any barriers, right? It needs to be equal across the board where people can access these programs and services. And it's just a lot of bureaucratic stuff that's involved in it. Because that way that the politicians can actually, study and debate and review all these other programs. I mean, well, they don't need to. They just give the people the housing. I mean, I always say get people housed. I mean, that's my motto, is keep people housed.
Yes, they need to listen.
Yeah. That's the key, to listen, yeah.
Yeah.
Seems hard for them to do somehow.
Yeah. I could go deeper into that, but that would be like a tangent, the poverty.
Well, we're okay with the tangent.
Okay.
We're okay with tangents if you want to go there.
I love tangents. I love tangents. Yeah, we'll dive right into it, Eve. Yeah, let her rip.
Perfect.
Okay. We always like our guests to have fun on the show, so yeah, just let us know.
We're actually going to be rolling out faster shows now too, but this will be a longer show again. So we're okay with rabbit holes today. We can go down rabbit holes.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say again is, like, to go back to the Safers, the seniors option for the rent subsidy. Our friend MJ is looking. She's putting together a petition for doing exactly that, extending that Safers program over to PWD, and I was trying to coach her and say we have to focus on equivalency, like the equivalency that the seniors get. It's about a $300 subsidy, right? Like it's $300 bump up, and of course MJ says, well, $300 is not enough, and I said I agree, it's not enough, but in the eyes of the government, you have to look in their eyes. Their argument's always going to be, well, what's the equivalency, right? So if you argue the equivalency, then the bump up to $300 bump up to, say, $800 instead of $500 for a shelter is at least a reasonable ask, because you can say, well, that is what the elderly people get. So yes, it's not nearly enough.
Yeah.
It's not nearly enough, but at least it's a bump up of something, and it's kind of the equivalent of what the our elderly population gets.
Oh, absolutely. I always say that, extend these programs over to individuals that are on low income seniors, uh, single mothers, single fathers, and make sure that they do qualify for these things, like a situation that you had gone through too, Neil. And everybody should qualify under a certain tax bracket. I mean, you fall under a certain tax threshold, you should automatically qualify for these programs, because it benefits the individual, it benefits society, it puts less strain on our healthcare system. There's so many angles that there's benefits from it, rather than the corporate landlords getting all the extra money where nothing goes back into the economy. And so I always kind of wonder why it is like even high market rents, for instance, like they're not even tied to like vacancy control. Maybe we could talk about that. Do you know anything about vacancy control?
Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh, please
Yeah,
do tell.
yeah, vacancy control. So vacancy control is
Yeah.
when a tenant moves out of their unit and they move into somewhere else, and now the unit is now vacant.
Mhm.
The owner or management company can come along and actually jack up the rent to what the market will bear in between tenancies. So if a person is grandfathered into their unit and say they're lucky enough to get a place for, oh, I don't know, $1,500 a month,
Mhm.
and they move. But before they move, people say, "Oh, I would love to pay $1,500 a month." Well, they can't have that. I mean, they can visualize and say, "Well, that would be nice. It's one of those nice things to have." But as soon as you move,
Yep.
I mean, I'll give you an example. If I were to move from my unit across the hall, I'd be paying what the normal market rent is going for that unit.
Mhm.
Now, the management company will now rent out my unit for 1,800 over $1,800 for the same unit. They may even do renovations, probably not. They'll just probably just change the lock on the door and call it a day. And next,
Yeah.
Yeah.
please. Yeah, I mean it's
That's called
crazy.
vacancy control.
That's called vacancy control, and there's no vacancy
Okay.
control in BC.
Yeah.
Yeah, I witnessed that during the pandemic, especially.
Mm-hmm.
And even now, I see that in apartment complexes that I have been in or whatnot. They have vacancies and they hold them and they'll wait until they can get people who are willing to pay that exponential price.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
the conditions of the suite are often not very good, and it's very yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll say if you have the money there, they'll rent it. I mean I've seen some units in my building that definitely need a lot of TLC, tender loving care,
Yeah.
cracked tiles, and they won't replace them. They don't want to paint it; they'll just buffer it up a bit. And the previous tenant was paying just $892. They re-rented the whole unit for $1,700. $1,700.
Gouging. It's
And,
gouging.
and nothing was done. Oh, they put apparently a used stove in. I mean, probably a cheap brand, a cheap fridge. That's it. I mean,
You know what's interesting, Brent, is and of course Eve doesn't know, but I've done a lot of discrimination cases, like human rights cases against the government for my clawback to my survivor's pension.
mhm.
And in my investigation of different human rights cases, I've found out that that the government here does not deem source of income is not a grounds of discrimination, except in the case of rental income.
Mhm.
So source of income is not a case of is not a grounds for discrimination except for rental income, and
Mhm.
and but it's funny though that I mean there's a lot of discrimination that still happens
Mhm.
when it comes to rental income, right? Because
Yes.
you've experienced that so much, Brent, where
Yep.
I mean you get red flag right away. It's like, well, how are you going to afford this? Like,
Mhm.
see you buy,
Mhm.
Yep.
so I mean the government can say, oh, you know, we're gonna allow rents to be a source of discrimination, that source of income to be to be a source of discrimination. But if there's no follow through, it doesn't matter. The discrimination is going to happen anyway,
Mhm.
right?
Yep. There's
Yeah.
not a double speak.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I found the name of the one for Safers. It's Shelter Aid for Elderly Renters.
Okay.
That's what it stands for. I always get that one tongue tied. I'm like, yeah, I know it stands for something. And then, of course, I'll say it now and I'll forget about it.
I
Yeah,
feel like we're on an episode of Jeopardy.
yeah. Shelter Aid for
I'll
Elderly
I'll
Renters.
have acronyms for $800, Alex.
But here's the catch, Eve. Here's the catch on those subsidy programs, though, too. It's based on household income.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
yeah, now there's a huge red flags on that because I had gone through that where, God rest my mom's soul, but I grew up with from a single mother. My father left when I was just a kid, so my mom brought my brother and I. It came to a point where my mom had to get a senior's supplement. She applied for it. She didn't know nothing about this stuff, and because I was PWD at the time, and I still am, but I was living under the household. My brother wasn't. He was an independent individual, so he worked for himself, self-employed, has his own business, but he was making way too much money based on the household. So
yes.
he was told to now either I leave or he leaves. So he was able to be very independent for himself. So he left, and my mom had a meeting with the government, and they said, well, based on the situation, I think that Brent should stay with you. And I said, okay. And they said, are you in agreement? I said, sure. And I said, okay, can I have the same supplement that she does? Well, you're not a senior. I go, no, but can I have the same program? They're like, no, unfortunately, that's only, it doesn't get extended into housing. And my mom lived in her own house. Like didn't have to move. She stayed living in her own home. But the thing is that program's not available for PWD in market housing. It's only available under BC housing umbrella. Yeah, so that's why I want to have it
Isn't
extended
that
over.
convenient, Brent?
Yes.
Isn't
Yeah.
that
Everything's so
They
convenient?
said
separate.
because you get shelter and she gets the subsidy. So it got to a point where I was working at the time, and also I had my PWD. So the thing is that my income now started blossoming up more based on hers. So I was told to reduce down my hours. Otherwise, I would then have to go, and my mom would have to live by herself.
That's horrible. It's
Isn't that
unacceptable.
terrible?
It's
Like, yeah,
unacceptable.
just kick out the siblings because, hey, as long as you qualify. And
So
yeah,
much for
What
family
it does-
staying together. Yeah.
yeah,
I just wanted to turn to the chat for a second there, Brent, because I should sometimes I don't keep an eye on the chat. I really should. I just I just wanted to say there's a couple comments about how long people had to wait for their housing for their subsidized housing. For Peter Cunnington, it was 12 years. And then for Dan in Toronto, it was he said he applied in September 2005 and he got it in May 2016.
oh,
So that's like 11 years or something. And
wow.
and then this is why I should be keeping closer eye on the chat because Inga, I think she said it way before we did. She typed in the chat shelter aid for elderly renters. So she actually typed that in the chat probably before we got to the acronym there. So thank you, Inga. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much on the comments on the chat session. And if you have any more comments, definitely throw them
Yeah,
out.
and
to us.
I'll try to keep an eye out, but sometimes it's
Yeah.
hard to.
It's I find it very discriminating by the government to penalize people for living with their mothers or their grandparents or whoever the individual that they're living with in order to keep the cost of the housing down. I mean, it's dividing people against people of have and have nots. And again, I mean, everyone has the right to housing, right? It is a human right, and I want to see it treated that way. And not having people waiting for so many major years to get into housing. And I'll give you an example, Eve. So I phoned up BC Housing one day. I was just ticked off. I mean, I was pissed off. Okay.
Yeah.
So I phoned up And the gentleman had a major attitude problem with me. I mean, I wasn't being rude or obnoxious with him. I was just asking very advocate questions of, well, like, what is the criteria and why hasn't it been changed? And he goes, I don't make the policy. I said, okay, well then who does? He says, well, the government makes these policies, but they offload it off to us as a subsidiary provider who we oversee the housing, and then we contract out to individual providers who then provide that housing. I said, okay, so if I wanted to get into that kind of housing, how do I do that? He goes, okay, well, are you not in housing now? I go, well, yeah, I am, because I like to keep people housed. He goes, okay, I live in market housing. Well, no, you can't just get into market housing to get into subsidized housing. It doesn't work that way. You have to either be fleeing violence, your place has to be sold or condemned. I mean, there's so many different avenues. You have to be homeless. I said, you have to be homeless first. I see. I mean, if you're in a shelter, we will take that priority over that. Like if you're in a temporary shelter, we will look at that as an emergency shelter to get you into something else. So again, I said, I can't just go from here to there to get cheaper housing. Mm-hmm. And he goes, no, I said, so you're saying there's no guarantee? He goes, I didn't say the word guarantee, you are, sir. So the conversation kind of blossomed from there. You can imagine how it probably turned out. The gentleman hung up the phone on me. Let's put that how the conversation ended. Talking about bureaucratic red tape, and I said, there's too much red tape involved. I mean, just give people housing, right? Not a long waiting list. And he says, well, we are constantly building more housing to help people with disabilities get into housing. I go, it's not fast enough. And it's not, not even just that. It has to be around your resources, like all your accommodation, your transportation, all your amenities.
Well, this really makes me think about how, like, there's a lot of people who are not able to advocate for themselves. They do not have a support system. And then you have people wondering, like you said earlier, why we have so many issues with drug addictions and homelessness and all the issues we see today. It's purely from the neglect on society and the government's part of people neglecting people with different abilities and disabilities. It creates this perpetual cycle of poverty, which will not end until we are given and receive the same supports and accommodations.
It's all connected,
Yeah.
It is. It's all interconnected, and it's a cycle. It's called the cycle of poverty. And of course, always the government spin on it is always, well, there's more to do. We hear you, we see you. Thanks for advocating. We'll carry your voices forward into into our legislature.
You're such good advocates. Congratulations.
Or your voices are not being heard in there, but
patronizing.
You know what, Brent? Like, I want to go back to the whole 26% and get the subsidized housing and the 74% don't. Because that's important to kind of key in on, right? Mm-hmm. And I've said this before a lot. Everybody knows that I'm the metaphor man. I love metaphors, right? So I'm going to go back to my classic metaphor of the McDonald's.
Yes.
This is the one that I use all the time at McDonald's. So if you go and take McDonald's, and if McDonald's had a policy where they're only going to serve hamburgers to 26%, and then say, you know what, screw it, after we get to the 26% of serving, we're not going to serve any more people. That's it, 26%, and the other 74% will just turn away. They don't get any hamburgers, right? Mm-hmm. Can you imagine if that was the model that McDonald's used? If that was the model that McDonald's used, where they were turning away 74% of their customers, how long do you think they would be in business for, Brent?
They would be shutting their doors pretty quick. Maybe laying off.
Right? I mean, if it was just random, it was just like, well, you get your hamburger and you don't. But the thing is, it's not even random. It's like the government picks and chooses exactly who the 26% is. And they pick and choose exactly who the 74% is, right? So it's always the same people that are getting tossed aside all the time. So
And
it
who
is a
creates these
discrimination.
standards? Who creates these standards? That's my
Yeah.
question. And then
Yeah.
this always makes me think of eugenics, right? Because like
Yeah.
Yeah.
you think about who fucking the way they treat, sorry, excuse my language, but the
It's
way they
okay. It's
treated
okay.
disabled children and history and
Yeah.
where the criteria for the people with disabilities comes from, it comes from eugenics, right? And
Yeah.
this is where we need to societally and systemically and within the government, we need to change the rhetoric, and
Hmm.
people with disabilities need to be the one creating the criteria, not the people who are trying to put us in boxes.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know, Brent. Do you want to go down a bit of a rabbit hole?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
you just brought up a really good point, Eva. I just want to jump off and do a rabbit hole dive a little bit,
Yep.
because I just saw a video the other day. Now I forget the person's name. Maybe I'm gonna try to look it up during the show. But there's a what do they call it? Like a hospice in Delta,
Hmm.
Delta, BC, and they were totally privately funded. They did their own funding. They paid for their own land. They paid for their own buildings. They just got a lease for the property. But they basically paid for all their own buildings and everything, right? So they're privately funded. They don't rely on any government funding at all.
Hmm.
And a couple of years ago, the government said, if you don't
Hmm.
support MAID, we're gonna cut your funding. And they said, well, we don't care because we don't get
Oh,
any
wow.
funding from you anyway. But then they said, well, if you don't support MAID, we're gonna kill your lease.
Hmm.
And they just got a new lease. It was a 25-year lease, and the
Kinda.
provincial government here killed their lease of 25 years and basically kicked them off of the property of buildings that they funded and they built with their
Hmm.
own money, privately funded money.
Yeah.
And the government said, if you don't support killing people, we're going to kick you off the property. And that's what
Oh,
they
wow.
did. That's what they did.
I'm just see if I can find it too. I think I know which one you're talking about. Oh, where
Did
was
I think did I send it to you? I
Why did
think
they
I'm
close Riverview Hospital, you know?
find that?
Mm.
yeah.
They
And
keep
and that
closing
and then
facilities.
and then of course there's that recent story about the daughter that got her medication
Oh,
stopped too, right?
yes.
So all of that is kind of related where you can see the government doesn't really, there's no value of human life anymore. Like human life has a dollar figure attached to it now all the
Mhm.
time. It's like, you know, human life never used to have a dollar figure. Well, I shouldn't say
Mhm.
never, but certainly not as much as it is today.
I mean,
Um,
well, people have a right to be treated with dignity and respect, and I mean that comes down to a human right issue. Also, it's a standard. I mean, it's not even. I mean, it is a human right, but it's just a standard. I mean, dignity and respect. And when governments treat people with like as a dollar figure of well, they're not going to invest into society, so why should we even care? Well, actually,
Well,
that's I
yeah.
mean that's a negative that I mean I hear that from one of my neighbors that I bump into every so often now. I don't even want to talk to him because it's ableist. Like it's saying, well, I mean, well, you don't pay taxes. Well, actually, you know what? I do pay taxes. I do pay taxes every time that you go to the store and you buy, say, dish detergent or you buy laundry detergent or deodorant or whatever. You're paying tax. You're paying tax on anything that's taxable, any taxable item. And that money goes back into the system. So
yeah,
yeah,
Who,
I
who's that person to say, whose life is valuable and whose is not?
yeah.
Because, like you're saying, like there's a lack of heart and a lack of empathy.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I've just looked this up, Brent, and
Yeah.
it was the Delta Hospice
Oh,
Society,
oh,
and
is it a video? Maybe you can. Oh no, you can't play it. Whereabouts is it? Maybe I can play it.
well, there's a couple of videos. I don't know which one you want to. I don't know which one you want to do, but the
Maybe share it to
the
my
the
messenger.
the, the person that is pushing back against the government is her name is Angelina Ireland. And maybe what I'll do is I'll link to one of the videos.
Sure.
It's a shorter video.
Okay.
So let me just
Yeah, and then I'll just play it.
I'll send this one over to you, Brent. One
Sure.
second.
Okay. Sounds good, and then I'll
One
just
second.
play it out there for us. Yeah.
Okay.
While
So
Neil's doing that, yeah, I mean, it comes down to just treating people fairly, right? And not doing that divide against divide, because I'm like I say, I'm not sure if you've heard about the story about the 9-year-old little girl in BC. She's got a rare disease, and the government decided that $800,000, or almost $1 million per year, to treat her. It's not. They just they said there was no scientific evidence, enough evidence to continue on the drug therapy for her to keep her going. Yeah, and basically the mother said that the government never contacted the physicians, the direct physicians related to her daughter and the family. They are going with specialists have told them. So a lot of people are pushing back against that.
yeah. But that's just two examples. That's just two examples in very recent history. Both of those things are going on, and that's what I mean about the government doesn't seem to value like this whole idea of like not putting a value on human life anymore. It's like, well, you know what? It's the bottom dollar is what matters. It's like if we have to kill people, we just have to kill them. It's it's just like wow.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get the video here, and
this is Kraken.
Oh, yes, advertising. The paid sponsor.
wait till you see the high tech way we share videos on here, Eve. It's
Allen. Angelina Ireland is the president of Delta Hospice Society in Delta, British Columbia. The organization, founded in 1991, is dedicated to helping families and individuals experience life-threatening diagnoses, advanced illness, or bereavement by offering palliative care and other end-of-life services. Sounds wonderful, right? Well, not to the British Columbia provincial government, which has been on the warpath against Delta Hospice since medical assistance in dying, or MAID, has become legal in Canada in 2016. Because Delta Hospice refused to participate in MAID, the government in 2020 ended a $1.5 million funding contract with Delta Hospice. Additionally, the British Columbia Fraser Health Authority further terminated its property lease with Delta Hospice, which effectively evicted the organization. So what now for Delta Hospice? What is their future with no property? Is this a warning shot to other hospice organizations who refuse to toe the government line? And what has Angelina Ireland been up to? Well, joining me now to discuss the Delta Hospice case and a new anti-euthanasia film is Angelina Ireland herself. Welcome, Angelina. It's been, I guess, maybe a year or two since we've had you on last. Nice to see you again.
Hi, thank you, Tanya, for having me.
Yeah, I remember we were following your case very carefully because it's, every 6 months or so, there'd be another twist in your case. It would make for a very good film. But why don't you, for those viewers who may not be as familiar, briefly give us the backstory of how Delta Hospice got to this point?
Yes, as you said, we are a palliative care organization since 1991. And basically our mandate has been to protect authentic palliative care. And, we are that little engine that never gives up, that little choo-choo train that doesn't stop. We never, ever give up. And we are continuing to try to protect palliative care, try to protect Canadians. As an organization, we privately raised about $8 million. We built a hospice and a supportive care center. We operated it for 10 years. We got into a service agreement with the Fraser Health Authority. So we brought our private organization, our private facility, into the public health care system for $1.5 million a year to try to operate it. I'll let you know, it cost us much more than that, but we got $1.5 million. When we refused to participate in this thing they're calling medical assistance in dying, the Fraser Health Authority canceled our contract. Which was fine as far as we were concerned, because we believed we could still operate without government money. But when we said that to them, apparently that's not the right answer to give the government when they try to push you to do something. So they canceled our lease. So we had built our buildings on a 35-year land lease. And when we refused to participate in euthanasia, the Fraser Health Authority canceled that lease with 25 years left.
And they can just do that unilaterally. They can cancel it.
Well, a government can do whatever they want, actually. You know, if they have a majority government, they can do whatever they want.
And that's exactly try to appeal this to court?
Well, you know, we did have some court battles around membership of our organization. We were advised that certainly we could go to court with our one lawyer, and the government would walk in with 10 lawyers, and we would be bankrupt with lawfare. So we decided to let them have their way. They took our buildings, they evicted us from the property, and they reopened our hospice with our furniture in it 2 weeks later.
Wow.
And they operate the Irene Thomas Hospice, which was the name of our hospice. They operate it to this day, providing euthanasia there.
Oh.
Wow. But that's your building.
It's crazy, right? Crazy.
We built it, absolutely, but it sat on their land, and we were not allowed to take our building because it was considered to be like a fixture to the land, like it was some kind of old fence or some old shack, and the government expropriated it.
Jeez.
Yes, they did because that's what governments can do.
Oh my God.
And so we were the victim of that. Yes.
Oh.
Wow, that's so shocking. Because I remember, I think the last time we had you
Isn't
on,
that crazy? It's just
froze about
nuts.
membership
Just nuts.
Yeah, that's terrible.
It's crazy. Yeah.
And when you try to talk to these things about the average citizen, they do not. So when I talk to my family about this, my elders, they say things to me like, oh, well, if you want to look at the world in such a negative way, you can do that. The world's not really like that. The average person has a very hard time accepting and chewing on this type of reality. They don't even pay attention. They're off watching sports, you know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's part of the problem is that people's lived experience stories are just not getting out onto the mainstream media. The media is not picking up on it. I mean, only little breadcrumbs here and there. Like if it really entices the media to, oh, it's something interesting. Oh, okay, well, let's hear a little bit about the story, and then they'll water it down. They'll water it down of whatever they don't want to hear, and then the story's not fully getting out there, like little sound bites, because it doesn't affect their lives. It doesn't affect government's life. I mean, they live in a bubble. They're privileged. There are some awesome, wonderful advocates out there from governments. I mean, I must say there are some great ones, but then there's other ones where, well, you know, just get them a job. You know, they just need to be working. Just get them working. I mean, that's what's going to better their well-being. Well, unfortunately, that doesn't work. One size doesn't fit all. And I think it's the government narrative. They spin it out there. And I've heard it from doesn't matter whatever political party it is, they'll spin it out there and they'll copy paste all along. It's like an orchestra.
Can I just put a final point on this whole assisted suicide thing?
Yeah.
Because I mean, you and I, Brent, are about the same age, and we're going to show our age compared to Eve, I know, but like in the 70s and early 80s, particularly, there was a bit of a epidemic, I guess, with suicide, right? I think you remember that there was a short period of time where there was a lot of like after school programs and stuff were dealing with like suicide, like, you know, please don't commit suicide. It's bad. Like all these kind of things. You know, it's almost like you know, when you had like Ronald Reagan or Nancy Reagan, you know, like say no to drugs thing. It was kind of the same thing. It's like say no to suicide, right? And I mean, it was a big message when I was growing up in the 70s. It was a big message, like don't commit suicide, don't commit suicide. And now our governments are saying, please commit suicide, you know, sign up for it, please.
Well, I remember even in the 90s,
wow,
oxymoron.
even into the mid 90s, though, Neil. I mean, it was still the conversation was still there. I mean, I remember my family doctor, my family GP. I was suffering from allergies at the time, and I was just feeling really you know, I mean, people feel like kind of glum, right? Because it's like, you know, your head's full. You got a head cold. Plus, I had allergies at the time, And I just said, I feel like, pardon my language, everyone, but I said, I feel like shit. And he goes, yeah, I think your mom was mentioning something that to me before. I goes, but I can't talk about patient confidentiality. He says, even though my mother had the same GP, but he says, but I can tell you one thing that you apparently had said, I guess at one time that your mother heard you say, and it was a figure of speech. I said, like, I mean, I said, I freaking hate this province. I hate this country. I said, maybe I shouldn't have been born. And so, you know what he said to me, Brent? Have you ever thought about suicidal thoughts at all? I'm like, excuse me. And I go, where are you getting this from? He goes, then he finally told me. I go, sir, that was actually blown out of context. I said I was just pissed off because my friend at the time wanted me to go to a movie, and I was ticked off because I had this other friend who wanted to go for coffee, and I just like no, like taking sides, and I guess I was in a bad mood, and I was just like, I hate this freaking country, I hate this province, and I wish I wasn't born. Well, she took it out of context, told my doctor, well, like, I'm kind of concerned about Brent. Well, then my doctor realized that, yeah, okay, like, this is what you said. But if that was to anybody else going forward, to the government now, you know what they would say? Well, hey, here,
Yeah,
go and
sign up here. Yeah.
Yeah, go and sign up.
Well, and I have a little bit of a story too, Brent. And I think I've shared this before too. But when my first wife passed away, you know, they tried to keep her alive. I had to go all the way down to it was St. Paul's.
Oh, okay.
I didn't quite make it. She passed away about a half hour before I got there, and but before I made the trip, I got a call from home, or I got a call at home. Excuse me, and it was a nurse on the line, and she says, "Your wife is going to die today." Like, it was a for sure thing. She's going to die today. You're going to have to come down, and we're going to try to keep her alive for as long as we can. But the very next thing out of her mouth, her mouth is, "How are you feeling? Do you feel like killing yourself?" That was the very next thing out of her mouth.
Oh,
Are
my
you
God.
having suicidal thoughts? The
Yeah.
very next thing out of her mouth was that, and I said, "No, I'm not
Yeah.
having suicidal thoughts. I'm fine." And she said, "Are you sure?" That was the very next thing
Yeah.
out of her mouth, though, was that.
Yeah, that's what my doctor said to me
That's
too. I couldn't believe him though. Like,
Yeah.
since I knew him,
Ooh.
I was a kid, and when he said that too, my jaw dropped, and I said,
Yeah.
Doc,
I
can't
was
believe you're
blown
saying that."
away. I was blown away.
Yeah, and he says,
Okay,
so
I gotta say something here because
yeah, go for it.
last year I had a really rough time. There's been a lot of bad things going on in my family with like their health and diagnoses.
Yeah.
I went into the hospital trying to seek mental health support, trying to get support.
Yeah.
I was I was actively suicidal, and I went in and chatted with the doctor. One of the first things the doctor said after sharing that my family members were sick and dying of cancer, they said, "Oh, would you like the MAID form?"
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Because I
Wow.
explained that I have disabilities and I haven't been able to find work because employers don't want to accommodate. And what if you do research into grooming and entrapment, this is what they're doing, is entrapping and grooming. They're trying to entrap disabled people to make them feel so hopeless and feel like the only choice is to do that because there's no other way out, is what it feels. It's just, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
And people think this is the exception, Brent. But like, I follow the BC Disability Caucus. It's a Facebook page. I don't know if you follow that. There's a Facebook page called BC Disability Caucus, and they post kind of just different articles all the time. And I used to post my personal story all the time and do personal articles, but they quite often just post like repost articles from newspaper and whatever. And and people from the community, people from the disability community, all across the province, are writing in saying, the BC government is offering me MAID today. The BC government is offering me MAID. So I mean, like, this isn't an isolated thing. Like, they get reports of people writing in all the time saying like, I was offered MAID today. I was offered MAID today. I was offered MAID today.
Terrible.
Just for being having a person with a disability, I was offered MAID. Yeah,
For having human
crazy,
emotion.
crazy to me.
If we have human emotion as a person with disabilities, what's with the intolerance in society nowadays with discomfort? That's my
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, your life is too hard. I guess you can take the easy way out, eh?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
we know
you're-
your life is too hard.
Yeah, you're having a rough day, but hey, you know what? We'll make it a little bit easier for you. And then they'll say, now you're not a burden in society. And I say people's lives are valued a lot more than that.
Yeah.
I mean, I one of my neighbors had said that before was, well, what's the point? What's the point in continuing on? And I said, how do you value your life? I love myself. I said, right, okay, then you love yourself, then you don't like the way the system is, then you need to reach out around you. If you can't advocate for yourself or you don't feel comfortable, reach out to people in your community and we can all band together and actually make the system change. I
Yes.
said, because otherwise, I mean, yeah, you may feel hopeless, but it's the system that's making you feel hopeless. It's not you.
Mhm.
Just thank you. Now is the word thank you.
Mm.
She said, thank you for being that voice. And I said, I mean, I can't change everything in the world, but I can bring people together and talk about lived experience stories and carry your voices forward. And I said that it's a systemic, purposely designed systemic legislation to keep people in dire poverty.
With regard to MAID, Brent, I just wanted to break in again. We got a couple of comments from chat again.
Yep.
Inga Klaus again has got a couple of comments. She said, my doctor said the same thing to me about MAID. And then she said, a follow-up comment, she said, try asking for pain meds. And it's the same thing. She tried to ask for pain meds. It's like, well, instead of medication, you just want MAID?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like
I've heard that. I've heard that before. And it's terrible.
and people think we're just making this shit up.
Yeah.
Like you're delusional, Neil. You're just making this shit up, or you're not. Stop talking nonsense, Brent. Stop talking nonsense, Eve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lady.
Gaslight you.
There's a lady on social media. Her name's Sarah Calero. She's very strong advocate when it comes to talk about MAID and stuff. So I'd really recommend people to
Eve is making notes. She's making notes.
Reach out to her thread on that, and she'll expose it out. I mean, some people they don't follow her, but she.
Sarah is great, actually. She's been very vocal about the CDB too, the Canada Disability Benefit, which we didn't talk about yet. But for those that don't know, the application process has started. So you can go onto their website now, the federal government of Canada website, and they have a link to the CDB now. You click that link to apply now. And the one condition though, Brent, and I shared this with you, is like I went through the whole application process. Not too bad. It's like pretty straightforward. It's pretty easy. Like you just supply your name and your banking details of where you want the money to be deposited, and then you have to supply line 23600 on your income tax, which is your final income total. So they want that. So pretty standard stuff. But the one thing they said after I finished it was you have to wait 28 days now for 28 days for a decision, not for that I'm going to get the deposit, but 28 days for the decision of whether I qualify or not.
My gosh.
So after you actually hit send and you complete the application, they still say, expect to wait 28 days for a decision of whether you're going to qualify or not for it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the topic regarding the Canada Disability Benefit, and that's something that has been watered down and completely squashed to the ground, kicked down the road, torn up when the person found the information, and it just got squandered up so much, and they put it into a big ball and they threw it back out there and like a bait and switch, and they threw it out there and said, hey, this is all regurgitated stuff. hey, what's all these amendments? Oh, no, we don't want all these amendments. Let's just throw them in the trash. And so what they did ultimately, the federal government threw all that, the strong recommendations, all these amendments, they threw them in the trash. They said, let's go with this. And the federal government were told not to do it that way. What it was supposed to be designed, Eve, is the Canada Disability Benefit was supposed to be a historic benefit that was going to lift people out of legislative poverty in the provinces. It was going to be a top up to their income, right? But it was going to lift them out of poverty. And it was going to be no less than, at one time, it was 2,700 per month per individual, then down to 24. Then it kept going down, down, down. And then finally, it was supposed to be over like 1.5 million people. It was going to help. Then it got down to hundreds of thousands, and then down to tens of thousands. And it was again, it was supposed to be modeled after the GIS, the Guaranteed Income Supplement for Seniors, and that's what it was supposed to be modeled after. And I think the intention at first, I really think the intention at first was that yes, they wanted to get this right, but they didn't listen to the recommendations from different MPs. Mike Morris from Kitchener Centre in Ontario, he really hammered with these recommendations. He got them put through. He said, "Yep, Mike, no problem. We're gonna go with this." And what it was that he wanted to have the benefit of automatically given for anybody on provincial disability benefits to automatically qualify for this historic Canada Disability Benefit. They didn't have to apply for a DTC. They didn't have to apply for the Canada Disability Benefit, which automatically go through to people on provincial benefits. It still can be done. It still can be changed because here's the kicker, Eve, is the CRA. And I spoke to the CRA. The CRA already has people's information. They already know who's on disability, who's not. They know everybody's income. T5007, everyone. That's how the CRA knows. They know what your income is. And that's your tax form down on provincial disability or income assistance across Canada. Each province may have a different T5007, but that's what BC has anyway.
And I wanted to break in and just go back to Sarah Calero for a second, because I'm looking on Twitter right now. There was something she posted. It was just on June 20th, actually. If you scroll through her feed on June 20th, she did a tweet. She says a quote from Patty Hayju, who is the new Minister of Jobs and Families. Remember we have a federal Minister of Jobs and Families who also does the disability file, but there's no mention of disability in the actual title of the minister, right? Yeah, so it's the Minister of Jobs and Families. So this is a quote from this Patty Hayju. And so she says, I don't think that disability benefit is what a person needs to sustain themselves, and I don't think it was designed in that way, she said in a recent interview.
Gosh.
Okay, so that's just the first part. Okay, so she says, I don't think that disability benefit is what a person needs to sustain themselves. I don't think it was designed that way. But then she says, yeah, but then she says, but it is a payment that allows for a fuller autonomy of people with disabilities, in that it's not directed towards any specific thing. Sorry, I'm tongue-tied. Yeah. It is a benefit that people can use to supplement whatever other earnings or income that they have. Can you? Wow. So I mean, can you just unpack that and realize how tone deaf that is, right?
That is so.
It's so tone deaf.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, wow.
Crazy though, right?
We'll give that one a red banner on that one.
Eh? I just had to go back and read that because as soon as I and again that's posted on Sarah Calero. That was back in June 20th. She's got a tweet about that. But
guess we'll give her first prize on that ribbon, eh? Just
crazy. But you know what, Brent? We're at the end of the show again. So I didn't know if you had any final comments, Eve. We always give the guest kind of the final mic drop. If you have a mic drop moment, you can.
Oh man, That's a lot of pressure. Honestly,
Sorry.
no,
No pressure.
Thank you for letting
Yeah.
me on this
Yeah.
podcast. I'm so sorry for being late.
No,
I've
it's
No worries.
taken some notes and I'm going to be using this information to
Good.
try and do good things like what you two are doing. And thank you. I
All right.
really I learned a lot today from you too. Yeah.
Good.
Oh yeah, it's a great pleasure having you on, Eve. And we're actually going to be having a rally at the BC Legislature sometime in October coming up.
Yep.
A Raise the Rates rally. We had
Yep.
one on May 29th, the last day of the BC Legislature. I mean, go figure, right? They scheduled the last day. It wasn't supposed to be the last day, but it was great. I mean, we had the DJ there and everything. So yeah, DJ Cool is going to be coming back. He's going to be pumping out some good tunes. So yeah,
And there might even be cake this time.
there'll be some
Ooh.
cake. Jeff brought the cake, but it didn't make its way over the Malahat. It didn't survive. It was there, but you know,
I have to keep teasing Jeff about that. Sorry, Jeff, if you're listening.
he donated it, though. It went to good use.
I tease in good fun. I tease in good fun only. Yeah.
I said to him, I said, a cake, and can I eat it too?
That's right. Yeah.
Mary Antoinette.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, it's going to be a great turnout coming up. I'm hoping, I mean, there'll be just as much of a big turnout that there was last time. And of course, October weather can be very temperamental, but it'd be rain or shine. I mean, we're going to have tents up there too. So regardless of that, people will be able to mingle and we'll be able to have a good time and make our voices heard at the BC Legislature and carry our voices across on Zoom across our beautiful country, so that the politicians, even the federal government, will actually hear our voices live, because we will be streaming live to everyone. So it doesn't matter just because you're not in BC, you're going to hear the live broadcast.
I wonder if Jeff will give me control over the stream this.
I think
next time.
I think next time. I think he was mentioning that. Yes,
good
out there.
So then if it's a bad stream, everybody can blame me, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
Well, here's the thing though, Steve. Is at the legislature, like, it gets very windy down there because you're close right by water. And even when I was speaking, I noticed listening back on it, I was like, wow, the sound was kind of moving. I was like, but I think what I'm going to do next time is I have one of those little portable microphones. I'm going to hook it up so that when I'm talking, that if they, for some reason, that the Zoom doesn't pick up, I'll give you the audio feed, Neil, and upload it to you, and then
that'd be great. Yeah.
And I'll come out on my speech at the beginning. I'll say, "Hi, I'm the host for PWD Allies podcast. I'm broadcasting live on location here at this beautiful legislature behind us, the People's House. Our voices need to be heard." It's a little free example of what I would say.
There you go.
But
well, it was a great show today.
It's great having you.
Really happy that Eve made it on. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was. I hope that you found it very informative. And I want to extend the invitation to you to come back on. We'll continue where we left off about housing. Brent's going to be taking a little break, everyone. Just a little bit of a kind of a announcement there later in July. Well, I mean, kind of mid-July.
Yeah, actually. The other thing too is if people go to the YouTube channel, people go to my YouTube channel, so it's just Neil Matheson. If you look up Neil Matheson on YouTube, you'll get to my channel, and you'll see that I have the next three shows queued up. And when we get to that third show, which is Susan Abels on July 4th, that's going to be the last show for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, for 2 weeks, everyone.
But you'll see the next three shows are queued up already on the channel, so that people can plan for that in advance.
Brent's going to be off for 2 weeks, but I still will be doing some breaking with Brent. Coffee time.
So that's invitation to make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any content. Yeah.
And then I'll come back. And then I'm going to be back actually on location here. For a little bit, and then I'll be taking off again for a little bit. So in between time, we'll keep everybody entertained with some just some live different things that are going on in the community. Maybe I might pop over and see Neil. Actually,
and then maybe my son and I will do like a food review or some gaming or something like that. So
And
You gotta tune in. You gotta subscribe for all that though.
and Eve, we'll meet up. We'll meet up over that time frame if you'd like, and we'll meet up for coffee. Coffee time with Brent.
There you go.
I'm
Live
excited
with
to
Brent.
watch. Woo!
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Stay up to date by subscribing, liking, sharing, commenting, and always smile. Put a smile on your face. Life's too short, and so that's the mic drop of today's show. Life's not too short, so be happy, be humble, and reach out to for help if you need it.
Life's worth living, not doing
Yes.
made. Yeah.
Exactly.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We
Cheers,
need each
everyone.
other.
There.
Yeah. Cheers.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks,
you
everyone.
so much. I'll see you later.